and address and design some programs for the children of incarcerated,
Okay.
okay, individuals. But at the same time, because we have to holistically address the needs of the family, we also look at how we can address some of the reentry needs of individuals who are coming back into the community with these families. So, as it relates to providing a deeper impact into building minority business in our communities, it essentially will largely depend on what the mission, vision, and values are of the seed granting agencies. And for me, this is one goal, this is one thing that we're doing this year, and we have successfully managed to address some of those needs. So in doing so, we look at how we can jumpstart a person who has an idea for business and a passion for something that they love, and we put them to work. I'll use my own for example. Lot of history with the system, okay? And very introvert type of individual. But he's very intelligent. He's a writer, and he's not gonna get in front of you and talk to you like me, but he has a lot of writing ability and spoken word ability, and he uses the lifelong lessons to teach others, but through writing and song, okay? So what we did was we sat together, putting seed into getting him started, was to get him his independent status. We had to pay for that. So we paid for those things to get him started into business. Paid for the startup, paid for the idea, paid for him getting into, he now owns the magazine, which we call Hindsight 2020. But it was developed because of his niche and his profession, his ideas, his skill sets. So we look at the skill sets of someone who's re-entering into the community, or who has community, they may be in a community capacity of re-entry, or they may just be trying to just get over circumstances that they've had for a long time. So we look at those things and we get them moving into business. And we've done that with 3 different businesses this year already. So we're very happy to say that that's moving through the foundation, through just small seed grants, getting them started. Business cards, website, idea, not an LLC, we usually start them as independent contractors, sole proprietors, right within their own city, tax IDs, all of that can happen within a day. Within one day, we can make that happen. So those were the things that we knew we could do, so those are the things that we focused on. Now, as it relates to their families, we address the whole family by providing that service component in terms of their children. If someone is incarcerated, then we reach out to them and meet the need of school clothing, things like that may go lacking. Provide the social support that family needs to continue while their loved one is away. So those are some of the ways that we address the minority community. But in terms of the minority business component, let's just talk about that for a second. As a seed granting agency, I tend to look at what's going on and who's doing what and why they're doing it. And if I see that they have this drive, but they're still struggling on making it happen, and I know that I can build a relationship with that person is teachable, that person is coachable, that person has the wherewithal to make this happen because they've got to stick to it, and I've seen that, then I'm likely going to approach them and say, hey, if I do this right here, would that help you? And most of the time, that gets a response, that gets those juices going. And that's how a few of the businesses that I've worked with got moving. Because I looked at what they needed and say, hey, I have this little bit. If I do it for you, can it help you get started? Because my thing is, I know you got this thing in your belly. Can I help you? And so that's how we help the community in terms of minority businesses. Did that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second question is for for Ms. Billingsley, and this question is, what data is needed to help businesses make better decisions?
I think, and I talked about this a little bit, at a seminar that I did the other day. We talk about, financial aspects and access to capital. That's something that I think, especially in the minority community, that we struggle with. However, you also see a lot of people that are in positions where they start a business and they have the wrong idea about what they need for that business. So for instance, they go out and they get this elaborate storefront with all the bells and whistles, and they buy all this inventory, but then they're sitting there and there's nobody walking through the doors. I tell people all the time, take small bites. Don't bite off more than you can chew at a time. People take out loans and they don't necessarily need it. The money's there for them, if they need it, but in the interim, all you're doing is accruing interest and accumulating more debt. So then when you're not bringing in those sales to even that out, you're going right back into that same cycle again. So I always tell people, position yourself to where you're constantly, as I said, with your mission statement should be constantly evolving, but also kind of refining your skills and fine tuning that so that you're putting yourself in a position where you can receive things like grants instead of loans. Right, you can, get with a financial planner to manage your income statements to see what you're bringing in versus what you're putting out. Because you see, people, I had, a business coach was talking about when she first started her business, she had this great elaborate office and it was beautiful, but what she does, because she does so much stuff virtually, there was really no need. She was spending a couple $1,000s a month for nothing, because she was always on the go. So I tell people to be realistic about what it is that your business needs, and partnering up with the right people who can help you to develop that solid structure and keep that solid structure intact, and not, because, we all get overwhelmed and, as you're going through the motions or whatever, it's easy to get off track. But if you have people that are helping you to stay on track and keep that fine-tuned structure, it's less likely that you're gonna just be another failed business owner.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I'm gonna just tap a little bit more into that question, using the operative word data. Data. I'm gonna touch on that just a little bit because I do investment readiness, and I think that's a very important word that you use there. One of the things you wanna do prior to getting started in business, you have an idea, and she mentioned about the different no-nos in terms of maintaining. Another thing is to canvas. When you have an idea, you generally want to know who else is there, who else is doing it, why are they doing it, what gap, what need are they filling, and what are they not filling. And the way you do that is you have to canvas your audience. You can set up on the side of Food Lion, and for example, we're here, and I had 2 or 3 opportunities leading up to this event where I polled the church. I did a survey and I put it out there and I said, hey, I wanna know what you need. I don't wanna just have seminars and events and give you what I think you need, but I wanna give you what you want. Because it's not as important for me to just give you something, but it's important for me to add value to your life, or your business. So for that matter, it is important for you to do things like surveys and canvas, because those are the things, when you as you collect that data, that is solid, hardcore data that you're collecting through those surveys that you're going to be able to take and say, okay, here's what they want, and here's what they don't want, here's what's not working, here's how they're growing, here's who's declining, here's why, based on the data that you asked for, okay? So, once you have compiled all that information, you then have the necessary data to say, if you were to go before a Shark Tank and they ask you, well, who's gonna buy it and why do you think that? Well, based on the data you collected, that data supports your decisions. Does that make sense? And that process is called canvassing, okay?
And and I think just to add to that too, I tell people all the time, it's important to look at different subsets in different scenarios also, because, one of the things I talked about, in my session the other day was allowing for, different variables, such as seasonal, options. For instance, my aunt, she is a hairdresser, and she has a very heavy clientele, but then in the summertime, you have people who are getting braids and may not be coming in as often. So, I tell people all the time, when you're developing your business plan, you have to look at all of the variables that are involved. You have to look at, you have to be prepared for contingencies or different shifts in economies, things that we can't have any control over. Look at all the disasters that have been happening this week.
Exactly.
I'm sure the people in Turkey were planning for their businesses to be closed today, but, there's a coup going on, so my business is closed.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's my place.
Yes.
That's my hometown.
I mean,
No, I'm just
and then look what it does to travel, too. You have
That's
people
where I
that
live,
are,
right?
you lived in Turkey?
No, that's where I live in cyberspace.
Oh, in Turkey, okay.
Yeah, you never seen that?
I did see that, I did see that.
Yeah, you changed your location.
I did see that.
Sorry to change, but a little laughter, a little humor is good.
Right. And I was like, Turkey.
I'm like, I don't know.
No, it's real in my mind, you guys.
I mean, it would be nice to go there,
Yeah, I'm
but
going
not
there.
now.
That's why it's there, because I'm affirming.
Right, and that's another thing too. You have to really have there's places that I want to go, and I look at photos of those places all the time, and I'm thinking I want to go there, and that's something that you think about too. Is you think about what time of the year you should go there for tourism reasons,
Right.
or I made the mistake of going to the Bahamas during hurricane season
Right.
one time, and I would
yeah.
never do that again.
Mhm.
So you have to do your research, you gotta do your
Yes.
homework and figure out what's gonna happen. There's certain times of the year that things are stagnant, so,
Right.
it's good to take all of those factors into consideration.
Yes, it is. Thank you for adding that. That was good. I love that.
I noticed that with
Okay.
our style of business too, because with fitness, people tend to fall off from your, at the end of the summer, at the end of the spring, all the way through the summer. So, being that I've been in business for a few years, in the beginning, I didn't know that. And so it was like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And so now I realized I pick up on the different parts of my business where people are not coming in for fitness, like a large influx for fitness. What else
Is
are
at
there?
work.
What else is
Right.
at work? Is it the cooking classes? Is it the meal prepping? So now, those are the things that are driving until the influx comes back in for the
Exactly.
fitness. And then you still do those other things, but you have to, start seeing where is the money coming from during all the seasons.
So you essentially have these ebbs and flows
Mhm.
of business. So it's very important that you know that data and what you're looking at. And you can do that by simply knowing what your idea is and just going out there and doing the research. Market analysis will help you with that. Okay. The next question is open. And so whoever wants to pick this one up. Are business plans antiquated in this day of data intensive and networked businesses? I'm gonna say that one more time.
Say it again.
Are business plans antiquated in this day of data intensive and networked businesses? That's a good
I
question.
think that they have sort of transformed somewhat. I think we're not necessarily looking at the traditional business plan in its written form. For me, I know with my business, I actually had clients before I decided I was going to be a real business. And I got my first check before I even had a bank account that said Billingsley Media, so I'm like, what do I do now?
Right.
So the business plan came afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's just for me, the way I work, it helps for me to have something that's written down on paper that I can refer back to, but everybody doesn't learn that way. And everybody certainly doesn't grow that way either. So I think it's a little bit different because your business plan may involve more intensive solo action on your part, and as opposed to someone else whose business plan may involve a lot of getting out there in the community. And then you also see, when you say the word networking, it also brings up another point that I always say, your business, sometimes you may not know what's going on in the community until you get out there and start connecting with other people. So your business plan is sort of like your, you know, I always say you can be your kind of a walking business card. You know, you kind of go out there and you feel what's going on, and your plan changes. Sometimes my plan changes that day.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And
I mean, I've had events that I've facilitated, and I get to the event and things have gone wrong, and I say, guess what? The plan, the written plan that I had for this day is totally thrown out the window, and you have to be adaptable at all times.
yes.
So I think, in a way, you can say that business plans are sort of antiquated, but I think they're more evolved more than anything.
Yes, and I'm gonna add to that. And I'm adding to that simply because from the investment perspective, readiness perspective, it's very, very important that, a business plan cannot be a cookie cutter type of, it can't, it just absolutely cannot. You have to know who you want to target, particularly if you are looking for money. If you're looking for an angel investor, then your language is not gonna be the same, because they have a different type of criteria that they're using to find you or to support you. When you're looking at a venture capitalist, a VC, somebody who is spending other people's money or investing other people's money, then your language is gonna be different because they have a whole different set of criteria. That same relates to business loans, because all they care about is when you're gonna pay them back their money. They're not looking for an investment of any kind. They're not looking for any equity from your business. They just want to know when you're gonna pay them back their money. So, you really have to, look at your business plan and see if you can meet the needs of all of it. It has to be really strategic. And then never ever totally box yourself in, because if you're not in a startup mode most of the time, then you're left behind. In a society that moving this fast, with 6 months life for this computer, 6 months, that's it. That's the shelf life, and then I'm gonna have to do something different. Then you have to be constantly in a startup mode. And then I tell businesses also, you start out one way. With Matisa and I, she knows, I did concept mapping with her. That's one of the things I do at Audacity, is map out, hey, have you thought about these other streams of income? She hadn't thought about them, but she has.
Leaving money on the table.
You leaving all this money on the table over here, but have you considered this and this and this and this? Now you can this and this and this. You're about to add 6 figures, 7 figures to your business if you would begin to progress using these strategies. So those are some things to also consider. So always be in a startup mode.
A business plan is good, but it changes and
All the time, like the ink on the paper.
just like she said, I didn't have I worked my business backwards. So I had this idea, like, oh, okay, I want to start my fitness business. So then I had to come up with a name, and then I was like focused on a logo, and then focus on business cards, and how am I going to fund this? I'm doing this. My employer was my investor. My employer was my biggest angel investor, I guess you could say. So it's like, your funding, where is it going to come from? I didn't realize all the different things that I had missed, like my business plan, like my marketing plan, like me making sure that I start a salary for myself. That wasn't even something I thought about for years, because all the money you have coming in, as you said, I'm just spending it on things I need, not necessarily pouring it back into the business and cutting just a small portion for myself. I didn't really know the benefits of all that. But doing your business plan, it'll take you through all of it, and it'll show you a structure. Every month I need to allow this for my bills, or every month I need to allow this for if I have a storefront, and all those different things. And so, but it's ever evolving. If I stay stuck with the plan that I did come up with later on, I wouldn't grow. I wouldn't be global. I wouldn't know all these different things. So it's
writing books.
Yeah, I wouldn't be an author. I wouldn't be all those things. So be so ready for change.
Also ready.
Keep it moving.
And this, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, I was just gonna say this. It's just like, with the business plan, and in my opinion, it's just like it's good to have that there for structural purposes. So you'll have something to fall back on. And to grow from, to even look back and track, you know, where you started, you know, to where you end up being in the end. You know, so you can look, yeah, I started thinking I was gonna do this, but man, look how it's, you know, evolved into this, you know,
Right.
something totally different.
Absolutely
or-
amazing. And if you check any of our businesses and seen where we were 3 years, for me, 3 years ago and where I
Yes.
am today, you would be absolutely amazed. Absolutely. The thing is, get started. Just get started. Go ahead and give yourself a name. Go ahead and get yourself a proprietorship, because you eventually might become an LLC. You might become a S corp. You don't know, but you gotta get started.
Yeah.
Just get started somewhere, okay?
Yes.
That's the most important thing. Get your plan in motion and let it move for you, okay? Your next question, we can, and if any of you have questions that you want to slide to me over here, because these are some good questions.
That's
So
good.
prepare them so that I can poll the audience. I don't know how are we on time, you guys?
I don't even know.
I don't know, but this is good.
I
know.
How many?
12:55.
Oh, we're doing real
Yeah,
good. We
we're
got one
good.
more hour. Okay, so this next question is we can all answer, and I want to hear from everybody about this. How can we better influence our youth in learning skills that apply in a service economy? I'm gonna let you start, because you started with the kids earlier.
Okay. Can you read the question one more
I
time?
sure can. How can we better influence our youth in learning skills that apply in a service economy?
I think the best way to do that is really through example. If they see that we're out there, putting forth our efforts in serving our community and is that's the route that you were going with that, right? Yeah, I'm thinking the biggest thing is just being an example, being that leader. A lot of us, we look at different situations that go on, you know, in our communities, in our schools, even in our homes, and we're like, man, that kid knows better. You know, man, they know they shouldn't do that, but in reality, they really don't know. And that's where we really have to step in and be that leader, you know, to be the change that we want to see, is what I've heard others say before. You know, we have to show them. We have to just simply, you know, be that encouraging example. Yeah, if we do it, then they'll follow. If we lead, they'll follow. It's just like I lead praise and worship at my church, and you know, a lot of times, you know, people will say, man, those people aren't worshiping out there. They're not praising out there. You know, but at the end of the day, the praise team themselves aren't really giving them anything to feed off of. You know, and that's sometimes I think that's how we look at, you know, our youth. We want them to display this level of maturity or this level of know-how, but they really don't know it until we actually step out there and show them, or you know, be that example. They won't know.
Models behavior
Yes.
that we expect.
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
I think a lot of times we underestimate our youth in both areas. You know, we underestimate their capabilities, and we also underestimate how much they're paying attention to, like Tony said. With my sons, a lot of times they're very heavily involved with, you know, with me with business. Anytime I have anything new, you know, it's literally like when my son comes home, he says, "What did you do today?" But he doesn't always want to say, "I went to work." He wants details. I mean, he's 13 years old, you know, and he's been like this for as long as I can remember. We underestimate sometimes just how much they know and how much that they are capable of doing. So, you know, and I asked him one day, I said, if you had to explain to somebody what I did, what would you tell him? And his explanation was, I think he was like 10 or 11 at the time, and his explanation was spot on. And I said, it's amazing because there are adults that I know who can't explain what I do. You know, so it's really important to expose them to those things as much as you possibly can, even if it's something that's gonna go over their head, because one day they will get it. It'll, you know, like aha moment will come up to them and say, oh, I remember when I was a kid, you know, my mom told me X, Y, Z. You know, and then also kind of exposing them to different things that are not, you know, traditional, so to speak, in our communities. You know, so for instance, you know, my son, you know, my husband is a defense contractor, but he deals with nuclear weapons and things like that. how many people can say, I mean, not to be funny, but it is to be funny, how many black people you know that deal with people who know how to make bombs?
Right.
Not a whole lot, you know? So, I mean, just the fact that he's exposed to that, and he can go, you know, the sad part is he goes to school and he tells his friends, this is what my dad does, and they say, oh, you're lying. You know, first of all, you have a dad, what's that?
Right.
You know, like, he has a job, like, you know,
Right.
you know, so exposing them to that, and even if you don't, you know, I didn't grow up with my father in the home with me, but I never, it wasn't a foreign concept to me to know a father who was a business owner, because I was exposed to that in my circle, you know, so it was never a foreign concept to me, and it was not something that, I thought was gonna be foreign to my kids either. You know, so putting them out there and introducing them to people who are different from them. You know, different is not always, you know, we shy away from different, you know, but find something that's different, and not always, you know, I always encourage people, like, you know, even like with finance, you don't see a lot of minority men who are in finance. So for our children, that's something that that may not be on their radar of what they might want to do with themselves when they grow up. You know, so exposing them to different things and exposing them, hey, you can be a nuclear scientist. You can be the guy who makes bombs if you want to. You know,
Absolutely.
so I think that's important.
Those were all great right there, by the way. I had to write mine down. I think if we show them their value and show them that they actually matter, and stop being so quick to hush them when they ask certain things, and really break the question down, and, you know, really give them value and detail on it. And I can attest to growing up, I was not privy to a lot of people in my family having their own businesses, and even knowing that was something that I even wanted to do one day. It was mostly aspire to graduate, go to college, and go to work for someone else to make their money. And or this person in your family has a great job because they do this X thing right here. I think if we take the opportunity to do more mentorships with the kids, to show them that they can't, yes, school and college is wonderful, to always have the education. No one can take that from you regardless of what job you have or don't have. But take that education and start your own business, and leave a legacy behind for your children and your grandchildren, and teaching them that value and bringing them under your wings, and you know, mentoring them, whether they aspire to do the type of business you do or not. That core value is still there on how to run a business, the finances and the investments and the different things that come with running a business. And all three of us have different businesses, but all three of us know all four of us have different businesses, but all of us know the concept of how it works and how it's structured. And we can just take and teach them that, and put them in camps, and, you know, teach them how to do that. Not just boys, but the girls too.
Yes.
It's key that, you know, we don't fall under the olden days where you just grow up to try to be a wife. You need to grow up to try to take some ownership and leave something for your kids, and just really, you know, teach them how to be better and be a better, you know, in society and community and whatever.
Thank you, and I'm gonna add my spin on that. I have a whole lot of spin because I have a whole lot of years of experience, I believe, and in terms of the children. Back when I was starting the nonprofit, you know, my children, and like I told you, I started with, you know, grabbing onto whatever resources were in the community to develop the nonprofit, and one thing was 4-H. You know, my kids used to always say, you know, or children used to always say, well, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? Because you don't know any better. You don't know any better, so we're gonna do it. So wherever mommy went, they went. All the doors were always swinging, always open, because mommy was extremely busy. So they learned how to host, they learned how to clean up, they learned how to put the event together, they learned how to do whatever, because they're gonna be with me. Where did business begin? Where did nonprofit begin? It began with the children. It began by showing them why are we doing this? Because we need to. We have to fulfill the gap in our community. We were looking at a flood. The flood of '99 was no joke. It wiped out our community, and so what are we going to do now for our children? So I had to show them how we're going to structure programs over here at this school. We're gonna spend the summer at this school right here at Welcome Middle, and we're gonna put together a summer program so that the kids on this side of the river have some place to go, because we're trying to recover from this flood. So we went into the trailers, they gave us some space, I used all my resources, I reached out to people, and the kids were with me. They saw how it was to be done. okay? And then eventually, right after the flood came, they saw me collaborate. I eventually went down to Green Street and said, okay, well, there's not much here, but we can get food from the schools, and we can get a slip and slide, and we can learn how to have some fun. And at the same time, I'm active as a parent. Active as a parent, but they're not only, they're showing other students how to engage, and they're a great big part of that. The next level was then we got the community center on that's house.
The hospital.
That's the hospital.
Mumford Road, Mumford Road, and then we had the facility. I was able to partner with the city. So it's all about engaging, and I tell you, it's about being resourceful. I didn't have a dime. Let me tell you, I didn't have a dime. But when you have a passion and a drive to do something, you can make it happen. And you have the connections, and don't be hushed about it.
Yeah.
I did 2 years of research. 2 years of research before I came out of the shell with Youth Today. And then all of a sudden, I was on the map, and people were like, where did you come from? Because I did what I needed to do, in my quiet space, in my home, with my baby girl, who I stayed home with for 5 years. I decided I let my job go. It was more important to me to let the job go and stay home with her because she was the last one. And I never got to stay home with any of my children. It wasn't hard, yes, we had to give up a lot. I lost a substantial income out of my home because I left the state ECU for 10 years. I was working for them. And I decided, okay, I'm coming home. And when I did, I honed in on her skills. Why is this important? Why is what I'm saying to you important? Because each one of my children are extremely talented at something, and each one of your children are extremely talented at something. And each one of my children today are walking in what their talent is. And I say that when I've already talked about the young man with the magazine, right? All right. My daughter, who was the city of Greenville's citizen of the year, and she was a this, and she was a that, and she A 5.0 GPA, $500,000 scholarships in school, but she was the same child who said, why I gotta do all this? Okay, but she got accepted to NYU, all the best schools. She ended up going to Howard University. Thank you, chief. Yep, she ended up going to Howard University. But the good thing about that was she cut through some core beliefs about herself, of what society would have her to believe about herself, to knowing what she should believe about herself. And she made that decision on her own. She is now an advocate around the United States of America, traveling over an entire region where she is fighting for rights of people. Show Me 15, she's on the Show Me 15 campaign, where she's trying to get the minimum wage raised to $15 for people. That's the kind of fight that she has. But these things are learned by service at a young age. Why did I make you do all those things? Because you didn't know better. You didn't know better, and I don't really care what you think about it. We're going to do it anyway, okay? And so every time these doors open, we're going to walk through them. This young lady over here is a super dancer. All right? She's never going to tell you. She's very modest about what she does. But this chick, the stage, she owns the stage when she gets up on it, okay? Ballet, modern jazz, you name it, contemporary, hip hop, most beautiful, graceful thing I've ever seen on the stage. I'm not just saying that because of her mom, but one day I looked up and I saw her. And I'm like, wow, that's my baby. You guys, so tap into their skills while they're young. She's an artist. Why did I know she was an artist? Because when I was calling her developing that nonprofit, she loved the pens. She loved pens and pencils and crayons. And so while mommy was busy doing things, mommy had her with paints and oils. I didn't care how messy she got. Just do it. She was the type of child, and she is today, young lady. You can't tell her what to wear. You can't tell her whether her shoes should be different colors. You can't tell her what color her hair should be, because that's her personality. But you don't stifle the creativity of a child when you realize they're an artist. These are things that artists do. This is natural for her. While the other part of me, I would never dye my hair red, but she wanted hair red? Okay, it's gonna be red. We're not gonna do yellow, but we're gonna do some red if you want some red. If you wanna go out of here with your shoes in different colors, that's fine, that's you. Now, she had to deal with the bully effect at school, she had to deal with that bully effect, but that's okay, she thrived through that though, to be who she is. She loves to paint, she loves to paint portraits, she loves to put paint to canvas, she loves to dance, she loves to sing, she plays 8, 9 different instruments, from the saxophone, the, what you call that thing, the ukulele, she teaches them all this stuff, the keyboards, the trumpet, no, the trombone, the what else? The horn, the, what else? But, oh, she does photography, so when I say she's an artist, okay, so what did I do when I realized that she does all this? She created her own business, okay? She loves to dance, but she's not gonna dance for free no more. You want her, you can get her. You gotta call her mom, okay? So her business is ISM Artistry. Now, she doesn't like the fact that I gave it a name. She doesn't like the fact that I gave her a handle of I Love Art 16. Oh, that's not cool, right? She doesn't like any of that. But she's gonna realize after all these conversations that we just had, why that was important, okay? So, you don't know any better, but I do, okay? So that's how we get our kids involved in community things. And every one of my children in my home are part of this enterprise. Why is it important? Your enterprise begins in the house, okay? If you have a skill, you can teach it to them. I teach my children how to own their own stage. That's economic development at its finest, okay? And I teach parents how to do this for their children. We will have workshops. We're gonna have all kinds of things right here at Philippi, where we're going to do the things that you want us to do. We're gonna teach you the things that you need to know to help grow your families, to help grow your family's family, your children's children, and your children's children, to build those legacies that you need. All we needed to know was that you were interested, and that's why we're here today. That's my wrap up. I'm gonna let each of my panelists now at this time, are there any questions to any of you? Sure.
Do you ever encourage veganism at your, or vegetarianism at your studio?
I don't knock any type of veganism or vegetarianism or anything like that. I just make sure that you understand the process, make sure you understand what's required and what restrictions, and when you restrict yourself to certain things, like if you can't have dairy or you can't have certain meats, what are you gonna be your sources for your protein? Learn everything you can about that particular style to make sure that you're still getting all the nutrients that you need, because you have to get them from a different source. So I always just encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, as a
Because
as a
veganism is
vegan,
hard, because
you
you're
don't
giving up a
really-
lot of stuff.
Yeah, but you don't really need to, document anything, because when you have a 100% plant-based diet, you can't really gain anything off of that, like, it's just gonna come off.
Yeah, but you still should have some type of protein base, something that's gonna keep your energy level up, especially with you dancing as much as you do and different things like that. So you still have, I would still journal anyway, everything that you eat, so that you can visualize the process and visualize everything that's going in. Don't just take for granted that, yes, because it's plant-based, that you're still receiving everything internally that you should from that, because you still need to make sure that you have all the right, all the right combinations. So I would still journal. I wouldn't just take that for granted, like, oh, everything's just healthy because it's plant-based. You still need to visualize it and see what you're putting in.
How much of this, how much of that?
You
And then
still need to do
women's health.
portion control.
Yeah,
and-
women's
That
health
makes
is different
sense.
than male's health too, so there's certain things that we
That's
need
very, very
more
important.
of.
That's a very,
yeah.
very
And
important.
at the
point.
age you are, you have your metabolism is gonna be different than mine would be, and just, is there a lot of things to consider with that. So I don't knock any style of eating, I just say make sure that you educate yourself and make sure that you know all those things, and if you don't, then you need to get with someone that is a professional in that, that can assist you in making sure that you're intaking everything correctly. Did that help? Did that help? Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes.
does.
But that was a great response.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Evangel Savage, and I am the owner of Audacity Group Social Enterprise, and I teach people to identify, initiate, and implement strategies of distinction for investment readiness.
I am Matissa with Wooten Fitness, and I teach you how to snatch back your health with fun fitness and healthy eating, because who said that healthy had to be born? Not me.
Love it. I'm Evelyn Billingsley. I'm the owner and operator of Billingsley Media, and I help people to build their brands one step at a time.
And I am Antonio Bunn, owner and founder of Influx of Wealth LLC, where we help individuals and businesses structure and strategize for their future success.
And we have just given you our 30-second pitch, and that's something that is an absolute must in business, that you be able to tell someone in 30 seconds what it is you do. We're going to wrap up our session because this has been powerful.
Yes.
But we have so much more I want to ask, but I can't go over. We've been in here at
Yes,
it.
we need to do it again.
Yeah, we've been in here at it for a minute, so, is there any question we had? You come, what's your name?
Lillian,
Lillian,
Yes.
come in. Was there anything you wanted to ask of the panel?
no, I think the question that was up there is what I was thinking about wanting to ask. So
Okay.
some of those things are,
What is something that you would like to see in
Yes.
another panel like this?
Mhm.
Maybe not necessarily the businesses, but what type of structure would you be looking for? One that hones in on what particular thing as far as economic development?
Something dealing with like nonprofit organizations, like how do they get their money? Like how can they build their money system to where they can grow?
Like a workshop for
Yeah,
nonprofits?
yeah.
That's a good one, and I agree with you, that's necessary, and sustainability is critical. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm just gonna share with you just a little bit about that, because like I told you, I was in nonprofit for 20 years, and I started from the ground up and didn't absolutely knew nothing about nonprofits. I ate, slept, and breathed books. Ate, slept, and breathed. I guess that's how you say it. Books, nightstands. The vision was coming so quick. That I had to get up in the middle of the night and write stuff
Yeah.
because it was just coming to me so hard. But in the interim, I realized that the competition for grants is great, okay? But you must position yourself also as a nonprofit industry that knows how to sustain for itself. You have to have the streams of income that come into your business that would even allow, that would support why someone else should give you money. Because you have to be more than the grant giver. You have to be more than the grant that's given. And so therefore you'll have to begin to design programs that are gonna bring in those streams of income. How do you do that? There are a lot of ways that you can do that. One of the ways that I did that was by creating Audacity. Case by case, I went from the Youth Development Center to, as I grew in my education levels, I grew from direct services to indirect services. So now that I can be an educator to those who are at the grassroots level of direct services. So as I moved to the indirect services of giving away money, I still wanted to figure out how do I keep creating the money pools for the nonprofit foundation where I want to give away the money, right? So at the same time, I'm creating this funnel, which I started with Audacity, because Audacity is a for-profit agency. So I no longer have to worry about how I'm going to be paid over here in this nonprofit agency, because I'm making all my own money off my own skills, off my own intellectual property that I gained for 30 years in the workforce. So I transfer all my skills from there to own my own stage with Audacity. Audacity, then a percentage of that goes back into the foundation, which allows it to grow. What happens at that point? Audacity then gets a tax deduction for the amount of money that they're giving to the foundation that's going to be given away to the community.
Yeah.
So you have to create those ways of creating sustainability for yourself. You can do that through B Corps. There's all kinds of corporations that you can do that through to sustain in a nonprofit agency. But again, the most important thing is to get started.
Can I add something to that? And one of the questions that I was asked the other day, was a gentleman that, was an ECU student that I've worked with, in an intern basis. And he's thinking about developing his business. And he said, well, I don't have my business out there just yet. He said, how do I do that? How, do I, go ahead and continue to tell people that I'm doing that? And I told him, I said, absolutely. I said, you need to go ahead and give yourself that moniker.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and live that and breathe that, because for me, I know him personally, and when I think of him, I automatically associate that with his brand, but other people need to see and feel that too. And once you start positioning yourself as that person, people will pay attention to that, and you will be surprised at how much that starts to come to you without you even asking.
Exactly.
People will start to inquire about you. People will start, and I told my oldest son, I told him this too, and I'm glad that he's starting to understand that, because there was a time, like you said with your children, like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And I remember one day I was so frustrated because he was going one direction, my other little one was going another direction. He's, why do I have to go to this practice? And after I stopped my head from spinning around like the exorcist, I gave him the explanation. And I told him, I said, you're going to see the benefit of this one day.
One day.
And what he didn't realize is that people were watching him. And I had so many people who were people in the community that he didn't even know them, but they were coming telling me things. So I noticed the way he does this. I noticed the way he does that. And I'm really excited about where he's going in his life. And I said, you are building your own brand. And you don't even know it.
Right.
You are always building a brand all the time, and you have to
Absolutely.
position yourself to be, and live and breathe that, and be that person that does that. My other son, my youngest one, I joke and I call him the bishop. He's the one who wants to be the person who cares for people. He's a very caring person, and I told him, I said, you can create whatever it is that you want to do. What you want to do in life to sustain yourself economically does not have to be on a list.
That's right.
And I think the four of us that are sitting here right now, we all have unique businesses that, were probably not on a list given to us, and we created it because we saw a need for people to get their financial lives in order, especially in the minority community, I saw a need for people to be able to get their messages out, because sometimes people don't know how to communicate their value to the world.
Absolutely.
You saw a need for people to get themselves in fitness, and you kind of pull all of that together. I love what you do because you're kind of that glue that puts everything together in the community, and that also helps people to figure out how they're going to communicate their message and how they're going to relay their value to the rest of the world, So I think that's important,
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
And then also the seed money, like I talked about earlier, you talked about grants, just be doing what you do, because that's how I gave my money away. I saw them doing something, and I said, listen, can I help you? Can I give you this?
And be on the, I'm sorry, I was just saying, be on the lookout. I told, another thing I told him is, read everything you get your hands on. You'd be surprised at some of those little small sections in the newspaper where they're advertising for grants and things like that, and for fellowships. You would be surprised at how many opportunities, and a lot of opportunities that I find throughout the year are things that I can never take advantage of it because it doesn't apply to my business. But a lot of companies are willing to give away money because for them it's a tax write-off. So you may have a company who's willing to not give you a loan, but a grant from Verizon or from Coca-Cola or from whoever to help you to develop your business. And that money adds up.
Thank you so much. Those were great questions, and we're gonna let each and every one of us close out now.
I was just gonna add to that.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. You don't want to.
I was gonna suggest with, as far as the nonprofit is concerned, I think you need to ask yourself, you need to have a why. Why do you want to have the nonprofit? And should it be a nonprofit or should it be a for-profit? When I first started out, because that was one of the things that I met with Angel about when we first started getting to know each other, because I knew she was a nonprofit and she was in that realm. And so after we sat down and we talked, because I wanted to do one for the youth based on the obesity rate and some of the other things I had done some statistics on. But then we sat down and we had to ask, should it be a nonprofit or should it be a for-profit? So you really need to ask yourself why. What are your reasons for that versus your for-profit? So you really need to know those things before you start diving down into all it takes to get your 501c3 and going into the grants and doing all those different things? Can it really be a for-profit and you get sponsorships and you start driving down that path? So really ask yourself the big why on it before you start going down that path.
And it's really not as hard as you think. It really isn't. It's just getting started, your activities. You know, knowing your needs and getting those activities to achieve your expected outcomes. But I want to also say that even if you're in a for-profit business, you should have a community nonprofit of some sort to support you. One of the things I learned in the nonprofit industry as I began to read is that all major corporations, every single major corporation has a nonprofit that they support, that they built themselves. Because why? Economic development, tax, shelter, annuities. Just like Audacity. If I give Case by Case some money over here from Audacity, I'm taking money from Audacity, that's my revenues, and giving it to the nonprofit that I support, that I created. And it's a tax write-off. So I got a funnel going on. Create your funnels. Okay, I'm gonna let everybody wrap up, sum up what you wanna say, and whoever wants to go first.
All right. Thank you all for coming out today. It's when it comes to economic development, it really starts with each of us in here. It starts with us really, like as we've talked about in here, finding our niche, finding that place that we have in the community, that place that we have in the world, and just beginning to work, getting started and beginning to work the vision that God has given us. And hopefully, you've gotten some tips and information here today that, will help you do that. Thank you. And you can contact me if you have any questions about anything financial, getting your credit worked on and fixed. And also, from a business standpoint, with bookkeeping and accounting services, my website is influxofwealth.com. I'm on Facebook, Influx of Wealth, as well as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Influx of Wealth for all three of those as well. So thank you all so much.
And then he has business cards up here too.
I just want to say this was very, very invigorating and empowering for me. This has been, a week where we've all had to kind of sit back and think about, there's a lot of stuff in our faces right now, and it kind of makes you think about, what am I doing, what am I existing for, what is my purpose? And I think that, we all have gifts, and a lot of us are just different in how we decide to facilitate those gifts. And, whether we choose to water those things and let them grow, or whether we just continue to let them die. And I think that is the one thing that, as my business grows, I want to keep that mission in front of me of helping other people to create their own destinies and, doing things that you're passionate about. And, once we continue to do that, if you have something that you're passionate about and if you do it the right way, you'll always be stable economically. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to see where this goes, and, thankful for people like this in the community who are doing things like this and then continuing to share their knowledge and their wealth.
I think today's economic development series was awesome. And I think it's an appropriate step in the right direction to get the community involved, to find out what are some of the things that they want to know about economic development in the community, and just pushing forward. As a business owner, this is something that could really evolve for other small businesses, to really get them networking with one another, finding out how we can continue to grow in our community, but yet help the next business. So I think this is great, it's something great for the community. And I will say with any business, if it's something that you would do for free and you get paid for it, that's even better, because that's how I feel about my fitness business. It's something that, and I do it free sometimes. So it's something that I love, and it's something I would do for free, and now that I can get paid for it, even better. And so if you're looking to snatch back your health or learn, healthy cooking, healthy eating, fitness at home, fitness here in Greenville, contact me, Wooten Fitness. I am Wooten Fitness on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope. I am Get Fit Virtually, and you can just connect with me, and I'll connect with you.
Thank you. Let me thank all of you for coming out today, and especially thank my guests who so willingly gave of themselves, their time, their knowledge to pour into our community. Thank you so much for your awesomeness. I also want to say to all of you that thank you so much, Ms. Billingsley and Mr. John Bum. Okay. I also want to say that it's extremely vital and important to me that we excel as a community. I literally gave my 4-week notice. I gave them 4 weeks. Because I wanted to share this story, and I had not shared it in my opening, but I'm going to share it now. Am I in a comfortable place to do that right now? But it's important. It's important because what's on the inside of me, what's in my belly to do in my community is more important than staying someplace that continues to handcuff me in a way that I cannot exercise my freedom. I can't uplift my community. I can't lead in the way that God wants me to lead. So it's very, very important for me to recognize that. So I got to a point after 10 years of this and 10 years of that in academia, 10 years in corporate America, 10 years of their healthcare and administration in Camp Rowe in the hospital, I decided that it just takes one more thing. All it's going to take is one more thing. All it's going to take is one more thing, and I'm jumping. I'm going to have a jump party. So last week, Thursday, I had walked into that one more thing. And I said, I promised y'all that if it happened, that I was going to jump. And by lunchtime, I had given them my notice. I feel really good about the decision that I made, because in your darkest hour, God will prepare you for something great. And although I excel, and although the mask, you see this behind the smile, behind all that we do, behind our push that we have to create greatness, there's a lot that goes into that. There's the cost of the oil is amazing. And I'm going to be a ride to live through this. I'm going to be a ride to live because I shared with my baby last night. Everybody that I shared it with was so excited. They say, you're so brave, but my baby over here, you, what? What? You did, what? Because that's her mentality. But that's okay. Because what I'm going to refuse to allow is the I can't, I won't, I'm not. It's only the I am in my house. From this point forward, will not entertain thoughts of not being successful. I will not entertain those things that keep me bound and in prison. I'm free today. I'm free to know that on August 12th of this year, I am going to be free. And on August 13th, all of you can come to my jump party. Because that's what I'm excited about. And I just want to help others get that kind of freedom. Because we don't even realize the capacity and the power of our own dollars. When we begin to have more events like this and have more people come before us about the things that are going on that we don't even realize that people are doing, you're going to see, you're going to be inspired by these things. So I ask you, stay encouraged. stay encouraged, continue your greatness. Whatever you do, if you have an idea, get going. Just get started. If you don't know how, we're here to help you do that. Okay? So stay encouraged for all of you who want to have businesses out there. Thank you all for coming. Just for coming. And next time, I'm going to challenge each of you to bring 5 people with you. Why? Because 5 additional people need to hear the messages that we have and how they can get started as well. Let me thank my Periscope community out there for all your support, the 2 hours that you spent with us. Thank you so much. I love you guys. We are live streaming in Periscope because I believe in being my best PR, which means that wherever I go, my camera goes.
Yep.
And I set up for the world. So, and those are the ways that we can get moving and empower beyond our local, state, and state levels by going global. So thank you so very much for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.